This rebellion was not spontaneous. It was the result of months of planning and strategizing on the part of enslaved people, the Maroons that were living in the mountains, and even some free blacks. Enslaved people built networks of communication among the different plantations, eavesdropping on whites and exchanging information. An enslaved man named Bokum Duddy was the rebellion's lead organizer. In early August 1791, delegates from plantations across the central region of the North Plain met in secret to set a date for the insurrection to begin. On this day, Bookman would give a signal, and the plantations would be set alight, and a general slave revolt would begin. Once the decision was made, a group of enslaved people, Maroons, met to solemnize their pact to fight together in a voodoo ritual. So this is what we were talking about when they do the drumming and the dancing. So they're preparing for this really dangerous thing that some of them may die. They're fighting against the slave owners. So they have a voodoo ritual. And here's a quote from it. The God of the white man calls him to commit crimes. Our God asks only good works of us. But this God, who is so good, orders revenge. He will direct our hands. He will aid us. Throw away the image of the God of the whites, who thirsts for our tears, and listen to the voice of liberty, which speaks in the hearts of all of us. So this is what he said in a speech, and it was published in 1824, but he said it in 1791. So in this, you'll notice when he talks about the white gods, that's about Catholics. And remember, they were pushing the Catholic religion on the slaves. And they said, no, our God is going to ask only good things in our freedom. So, and it also says in here, he will aid us, he will direct our hands. And that kind of speaks to when they said the ancestral spirits come into their bodies and take over during voodoo ritual. What happened in the early months of the rebellion? From the first night, this slave revolt was the largest and most violent yet experienced in the American colonial world. Enslaved people led rebellions on plantations throughout the North, burning fields, sugar processing facilities, and homes. The insurrection quickly grew. Over the next several months, enslaved people on more and more plantations in the North rose up, armed with torches, guns, sabers, which are like swords, and makeshift weapons. They spread from plantation to plantation. By the end of September, the rebels had burned more than 1,000 plantations and killed hundreds of whites. They also burned Captain Francis, the largest city in the colony, to the ground. So that's only in like just a few months' time. Many whites panicked, sending frantic requests for military aid to Santo Domingo, which is today the DR. Remember, it's on the same island as Hispaniola. Cuba, Jamaica, and the United States to no avail. To no avail means they sent requests, but nobody came to help them. Others increased their repression of the remaining slave populations. They sought to uncover new plots and conspiracies and killed hundreds of slaves in an attempt to limit the spread of the revolt. As the rebel armies grew and gained territory, rebel leaders focused their energies on strategic military operations, tactical maneuvers, and the new political alliance. So remember, we were talking about tactical maneuvers as one of the vocab words. So that's when they're like sneaking in from behind and maybe stealing the guns and or their supplies or some way blockading them. The rebels raided plantations for military equipment, traded with the Spanish for weaponry. So the Spanish are over in the DR part of Hispaniola, so they were getting weapons from them. And caught colonial forces off guard with surprise attacks and ambushes. More and more joined their ranks. By November, nearly half of all enslaved people in the northern part of the colony had joined the rebel armies. So if you reach this point in the reading, you can actually pause this video and then go to the front of the class and ask me for a granola bar, and I will give it to you. So the next question on this is, what did the rebels want? So just like I said, you're going to use these sentence starters and put this information in. So at first, the slaves were like, I just want better working conditions on the plantation, maybe additional days of rest, and the end of the use of a whip as punishment. In addition, there was a rumor that the French king had already emancipated, which means freed the slaves, but that Saint Dominique's colonists were refusing to accept the king's decrees. So they said, hey, I think France said no more slaves, and you guys aren't listening. So they started to fight for freedom that they thought they already had. And then as the revolt progressed, the goals of the rebels became more radical. Many began to see general emancipation, which is freedom from slavery, and the expulsion of whites. They said, we want all whites out of here from the colony as the ultimate goal of the struggle. So that's what you're going to write here in this section for what did they want. So at first they just wanted minimal things, days of rest and no more whips. But by the end they wanted complete freedom and they wanted the whites off Saint Dominique.